Okay, Frank, we got Doug Warner. You can turn your mic on and make sure that you're not listening to this actually on your computer, so it won't be no feedback. So, welcome to the show, man.
Oh man, Dr. Turk, I am a huge fan. I've been watching you for years, and
Oh, thanks, Doug.
weekly podcasts. I just have a really quick question. Cody from your
Sure.
Q&A videos, has he converted yet?
Cody
Yeah.
from University of Nebraska. I haven't heard from him. I gave him a book and gave him my contact info, but I haven't heard from
Okay.
him. So I don't know. You can pray he does. He was a feisty questioner. And for those of you that want to know who Cody is, go to our YouTube channel and just search for Cody, Cody. He asked 3 questions at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln last year, and they were pretty aggressive questions. So we had a good exchange, and it's challenging questions. So you can go check that out. But I wish I knew. I don't know. He hasn't gotten in touch with me.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Also, your previous caller, really quick, Ethan, I think that was his name.
Yeah.
Really, I highly recommend Apologia Studios. They do really well with Mormons, and they have a lot of good scriptures and stuff they give the Mormons.
Is that a YouTube channel? Apologia Studios?
Yeah,
Okay.
Apologia Studios. Pastors Jeff Durbin.
Oh
They're
yeah.
They're doing a lot with abortion, and they're actually
Good.
exposing the pro-life organization. It's like a mess right now. But
Right.
so I'm from Long Island, by the way. My name
Forget
is
about it.
so I was
Let's go get a cup of coffee. All right, now go ahead.
Yeah, when I just graduated from University of Miami, so when I went down there, everyone could like tell that I was from Long Island. It was funny. So I was watching a debate between the historians Peter J. Williams and Bart Ehrman on the podcast Unbelievable, which you had, with Cosmic Skeptic on the moral argument.
Right.
So Peter J. Williams, he believes the Bible is inerrant and infallible and also historical. So Bart Ehrman brought up the discrepancies between the different versions of the death of Judas, and I thought they were. I don't think Peter J. Williams gave like a really good response. It was kind of like a mic drop moment. So how do you justify or make sense of the different versions of the death of Judas?
Well, for questions like that, you need to get a book that's probably no longer called this book. It's called When Critics Ask. It's probably now called The Big Book of Bible Difficulties. The Big Book of Bible Difficulties by Geisler and Howe. And if I remember, their answer to that question was, it depends on when you're reporting on the death. One, scripture says he hung himself. The other says he fell and his bowels burst out. Well, both could be true. Why? Because you could hang yourself over a cliff, and when you cut the rope, that body's going to go down and bowels are going to burst out. So both could be true depending on from what perspective the report is being made. But let's leave that aside for just a second. One of the things that I think got Bart Ehrman into trouble in terms of his religious belief system is that he had this real wooden view of the Bible growing up. And he thought that if there's any discrepancy at all between the accounts, then the whole thing is wrong, which is false. Right. As my friend J. Warner Wallace points out, when you have eyewitnesses reporting on something, there you go, cold case Christianity. When you have eyewitnesses reporting on something, if you don't have discrepancies between their accounts, you don't have eyewitnesses. You have 2 people colluding. Well, one might be an eyewitness, but they've colluded to get together, right? So here's what happens in eyewitness testimony. The essential thing is agreed upon, but the peripheral details there'll be disagreement on. Even a relatively modern event like the sinking of the Titanic. Do you know the sinking of the Titanic? You had some people say, who were the survivors, say that the Titanic went down whole, and others say it broke in 2 before it went down, right? So how do we reconcile this? Well, first of all, did everyone agree that the Titanic went down? Yes, that's the main point, right? What they disagreed is how it went down. You could see that maybe somebody, say off the bow or the stern of the ship, might have thought the whole thing went down at once because they couldn't see necessarily the break, right? But somebody across the beam on the side of the ship could see it break, and so that you come up with different with different accounts of the same event. Now, we did find out through underwater archaeology it appeared to have broken in half because when we discovered it on the bottom of the ocean, it was in two pieces, okay? But the main point is everybody agreed it sank. Same thing is true in the New Testament. Everybody agreed there was a death, burial, and resurrection. What they're disagreeing with is peripheral stuff, and we don't even know if they're disagreements. They just could be differences rather than disagreements. Who got to the tomb first, or how many women were there, how many Marys were. There's like 4 or 5 Marys in the New Testament. I can't keep track of them. And if they were making that up, would they name everybody Mary and get all the confusion? No, they're just reporting that there were that many Marys because it was a very popular name, even though it causes confusion in the text when you read, which Mary is this? I don't know, okay? So it really seems to me that this is Bart Ehrman's making a mountain out of a molehill, really. I mean, and these are the things, by the way, that you can only really find disagreement on. Peripheral details about historical events, right? You shouldn't be arguing with what Paul says in the book of Galatians, right? Or theology he gives in the book of Romans. How can you disagree with that from an historical perspective? He's giving you theology. The only thing you can really find fault with are these supposed eyewitness details about historical events. And this is exactly what you should expect if it really wasn't a historical event. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. It was weird because he actually believes that John was originally written before the destruction of the Second Temple. So he says that Jesus actually predicted that, but he still doesn't believe he's God, which is kind of weird.
Well, you're saying Ehrman believes that John was written earlier? Yeah, well, I believe that too, and so does Dan Wallace, one of the top manuscript scholars in the world. Same thing. One of the reasons is because John 5 talks about the Pool of Bethesda.
Yep.
When the Pool of Bethesda was gone at 70 AD because it was destroyed. And in fact, Dan Wallace did a big, long paper on that and concluded that John is written prior to 70 AD. But look, you don't need John to predict the destruction of the temple. You got that in the Synoptic Gospels, which were certainly written prior to 70 AD.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, thanks so much for the question. Come back on next time. All right. Appreciate it. God bless. Good question. Yeah. I think when we're missing the point when we're trying to look at peripheral details in the Gospels and trying to find some sort of contradiction between them. We should expect differences if they're eyewitness accounts, and indeed they do appear to be eyewitness accounts.